Review of financial information. Review is an limited assurance engagement. It provides lower level of assurance than audit. It involves fewer procedures on basis of which limited conclusions can be drawn up. Audit versus review. Audit. It is a type of reasonable assurance engagement providing a reasonable level of assurance. Review. It is a type of limited assurance engagement providing lower level of assurance than audit. Audit. It performs extensive procedures including test of controls and substantive procedures. Review. It performs fewer procedures primarily focusing on inquiry and analytical procedures. Audit. It draws reasonable conclusions on the basis of sufficient appropriate evidence. Review. It draws limited conclusions on the basis of sufficient appropriate evidence. Audit. It provides an assurance opinion. Language of assurance opinion is positively worded. Review. It provides an assurance conclusion. Language of assurance conclusion is negatively worded. Following SREs have been issued. SRE 2400, engagements to review historical financial statements. SRE 2410, review of interim financial information performed by independent auditor of the entity. Interim means anything less than 12 months. SRE 2400, engagements to review historical financial statements. This SRE deals with practitioner's responsibilities, performing a review of financial statements when he is not auditor of entity's financial statements. His objective in review is to obtain limited assurance by performing inquiry and analytical procedures, accepting review engagement and agreeing on terms of engagement. Factors affecting acceptance of review engagement. Practitioner shall not accept a review engagement if practitioner is satisfied that there is no rational purpose for engagement. For example, law or regulation requires financial statements to be audited. That review engagement is not appropriate in circumstances. He may recommend another type of engagement. Practitioner has reason to believe that ethical requirements, including independence, will not be satisfied. Practitioner's preliminary understanding indicates that information needed to perform review engagement is likely to be unavailable or unreliable. Practitioner has cause to doubt management's integrity. Management or those charged with the governance impose a limitation on scope of practitioner's work such that practitioner believes that a limitation will result in disclaiming a conclusion on financial statements. These are the cases where practitioner should not accept a review engagement. Next, preconditions for accepting a review engagement. Determine whether financial reporting framework applied in preparation of financial statements is acceptable. Obtain agreement from the management that it acknowledges its responsibility for preparation and presentation of financial statements as per financial reporting framework, including internal control. Provide the practitioner access to all information relevant to preparation of financial statements and access to any additional information that practitioner requests, unrestricted access to those within entity from whom practitioner can obtain evidence. Performing review engagement. Overview of performing review engagement after its acceptance. Determine materiality for financial statements as a whole. Obtain understanding of the entity and applicable financial reporting framework to identify areas of material misstatements. Design and perform inquiry and analytical procedures. In review, practitioner mainly focuses on inquiry and analytical procedures for obtaining evidence. Why inquiry is important in review? Evidence obtained through inquiry is principal source of evidence about management's intent. Performing inquiry procedures also assist practitioner in obtaining understanding of the entity and its environment and to identify areas where material misstatements are likely to arise in financial statements. Why analytical procedures are important in review? Performing analytical procedures assist the practitioner in obtaining understanding of the entity and its environment and to identify areas where material misstatements are likely to arise in the financial statements, identifying inconsistencies from expected trends or values in financial statements, providing corroborative evidence, serving as additional procedures when practitioner becomes aware of matters that cause him to believe that financial statements may be materially misstated. perform procedures to address specific circumstances, fraud and non-compliance. If there is indication that fraud or non-compliance with laws or regulations has occurred, practitioner shall communicate this to those charged with the governance. Related parties. During review, practitioner shall remain alert for information that may indicate existence of related party relationships or related party transactions. Subsequent events. If practitioner becomes aware of events occurring between date of financial statements and date of the audit report that require adjustments or disclosures, he shall request management for adjustment or disclosure. Going concern. Review includes consideration of entity's ability to continue as a going concern using work of others. In performing review, it may be necessary for practitioner to use work performed by other practitioners or experts. In such a case, SS 600 series applies. Perform additional procedures on becoming aware that financial statements may be materially misstated. If practitioner became aware of the matters that cause financial statements to be materially misstated, he shall design and perform additional procedures to enable him to conclude that matter is not likely to cause financial statements as a whole to be materially misstated, or determine that matter causes financial statements as a whole to be materially misstated. Additional procedures focus on obtaining evidence to enable practitioner to form conclusions on the matters that cause financial statements to be materially misstated. Procedures may be additional inquiry or analytical procedures performed in greater detail or focused on affected items. Other type of procedures such as substantive test of details or external confirmations need to be performed. Written representations. Practitioner shall request to provide written representation that management has fulfilled its responsibility for preparation of financial statements as per financial reporting framework and has provided practitioner with all information and access. All transactions have been recorded in financial statements. Practitioner shall also request a written representation that management has disclosed to practitioner all related party relationships and transactions, significant facts relating to any fraud or suspected fraud, non-compliance with laws and regulations, all information relevant to use of going concern assumption, subsequent events requiring adjustment or disclosure have adjusted or disclosed, material commitments, contractual obligations or contingencies, material non-monetary transactions undertaken by the entity. If management does not provide the requested written representation, practitioner shall discuss matter with the management, re-evaluate integrity of the management, take appropriate actions, including determining the possible effect on conclusion in practitioner's report as per this SRE. Practitioner shall disclaim an opinion on financial statements or withdraw from the engagement if practitioner concludes that there is a doubt about management's integrity as a written representation are not reliable. Management does not provide the written representation required. In both the cases, in any of the case, practitioner shall disclaim an opinion on the financial statements or withdraw from the engagement. Next, practitioner's conclusion on financial statements, unmodified conclusion. Practitioner shall express an unmodified conclusion in the practitioner's report when he has obtained limited assurance to conclude that nothing has come to his attention that financial statements are not prepared as per applicable financial reporting framework. Modified conclusions. In case of modified conclusions, there are three types of modified conclusions: qualified conclusion, adverse conclusion, disclaimer of conclusion. Qualified conclusion. Practitioner shall express a qualified conclusion when he obtained sufficient appropriate evidence concludes that misstatements are material but not pervasive to financial statements, or practitioner is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence but he concludes that possible effects of undetected misstatements on financial statements could be material but not pervasive. Adverse conclusion. Practitioner shall express an adverse conclusion when he obtains sufficient appropriate evidence concludes that misstatements are both material and pervasive to financial statements. Disclaimer of opinion, disclaimer of a conclusion. Practitioner shall disclaim a conclusion where he is unable to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence, and he concludes that possible effects of the undetected misstatements of financial statements could be both material and pervasive. Practitioner's report. Practitioner's report shall be in writing and shall contain following elements: title, addressee, introductory paragraph, description of responsibility of management, description of a practitioner's responsibility, description of a review of financial statements and its limitations, paragraph under heading conclusion that contains practitioner's conclusion on financial statements. When practitioner's conclusion on financial statements is modified, paragraph under appropriate heading that contains practitioner's modified conclusion and description of the matters giving rise to modification, a reference to practitioner's obligation under this SRE to comply with ethical requirements, date of report, practitioner's signature, place of signature, documentation. Practitioner shall document following aspects of engagement in a timely manner: nature, timing, extent of the procedures performed to comply with this SRE and applicable legal requirements, results obtained from procedures and practitioner conclusions formed on basis of those results, significant matters arising during engagement, practitioner conclusions, and significant judgments made in reaching those conclusions. While documenting nature, timing, extent of procedures performed, practitioner shall record who performed the work and the date such work was completed, who reviewed the work performed and period and the extent of review,